This is Norway, a typical Scandinavian nation known for its high living standards, remarkable life expectancy statistics, and extremely low crime rate and corruption. Norway is often seen as the poster child of social democracy, freedom of expression, and futuristic environmental policies. This country outperforms most of the world in terms of GDP per capita income numbers, standing at $67,000, while large and avowed rich countries like USA, UK, and Australia all stand below it. Aside from these economic metrics, Norway performs exceptionally well on OECD index for percentage of tertiary education graduates to population, boasting its high education standards and equality. A country with very high rankings in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index and low unemployment justify its place being so high in the league of one of the most respected nations in the world. Norway has some of the best social protection for labor, faring better than most countries with strict laws on worker protection and working hours. In fact, according to the OECD Better Life Index, only 3% of the Norwegian population has to work more than 50 hours a day. This is extraordinary when we learn that the average for elite OECD nations is 11% and the United States has an average of 33%. This makes it one of the happiest countries in the world. So, what's the secret ingredient that Norway has added to its recipe which other nations ignored? It should be added here that Norway was not always this prosperous. In fact, its GDP figures in 1960s coincided more with nations like Nigeria, while its living standards were more like Greece, having fishing as its major industry at that time. But the coin totally flipped when Norway discovered black gold swaying in the North Sea waters just near its shores. In 1963, the Norwegian government asserted its claims over this area in the North Sea. This essentially meant that Norway had the exclusive rights to fish in this area and also extract any natural resources present here. Then in 1969, a ship called the Ocean Viking struck oil in there. The reserves were not any nominal feat for Norway. The oil production in the country exploded after that, and reached 1.6 million barrels a day. Nowadays, Norway is the fourth largest oil producer in the world, just behind Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia. Hence, here we all get to know that the country leading the charge for better environmental protection and reducing carbon emission is not at all a follower of its own theory. However, the oil wealth the nation received wasn't spent like we are used to hear about. Tiny Middle Eastern states swimming in the pools of oil tend to splash their petrodollars on enormous buildings, futuristic civic cities, and of course some great cars for their police services, but Norway didn't do that at all. Instead, they did something very unlikely at that time, which was an investment. Norwegian government invested its huge sums of oil revenue into this thing called the Sovereign Wealth Fund, known as the Norwegian Government Pension Fund, which now has assets over $1 trillion. This is humongous when you compare it with China, which has the second largest sovereign wealth fund but also has 1.4 billion people, while Norway hardly has 5 million. The oil boom caused Norway's GDP to increase by fivefold, from 12 billion in 1970 to $65 billion in 1980. The oil profits were directly pocketed by the government as the industry was nationalized and extraction was carried out by public companies. Now that the fund has grown to such an extent, every Norwegian citizen, no matter child, old, male, or female, is entitled to $200,000. This money is not accessible in terms of tangibility to the Norwegian citizens to spend on fancy houses and gold Lamborghinis. Instead of the profits of these investments, the Norwegian government funds high-standard education for its citizens, along with a robust welfare system and construction of essential public infrastructure. To understand the scale of profits, I would like to quote that in 2019 the fund generated an estimated $180 billion. Through the Sovereign Wealth Fund, the Norwegian government invested in companies in assorted sectors except the oil industry, the weapon manufacturing industry, the companies that are accused of labor exploitation, and tobacco companies. As most of the investments made by the fund are in companies outside of Norway, the fund's performance is typically independent of economic circumstances in Norway. Now all these investments and long-term planning have paid off, making Norwegians one of the lucky communities on earth, with their country being rich, powerful, peaceful, and secure for future generations. Now, all glitters is not gold. Likewise, Norway is not perfect. Some of the pertaining economic issues in this progressive and prosperous country are related to its inflated cost of living. The cost of living relative to wages is quite high. Some metrics clearly show an incredibly high cost of living, like the average utility bill is on average, an estimated $130 in the USA, while in Norway it is more than $180. Norway also has some of the highest taxes in the world, which may be a disadvantage for some people. Overall, the people in Norway feel somewhat content with all these high taxes and high cost of living, because the revenue from taxes is not going into the pockets of corrupt politicians, rather it is invested in the country's infrastructure. The essential merit services like public hospitals and good quality schools are provided to all Norwegians free or at very low costs. Hence, to answer why Norway is so good. Indeed, Norway is very good. They have strong laws, a system that treats every citizen as equal, everyone is entitled to subsidized healthcare and education, a strong economy, content population, substantial infrastructure, and corruption-free government. They are good because they don't misuse their resources and invest in a better, clean and green future. That's why they have everything that most countries yearn for. I hope that you enjoyed the video about the economy of Norway. This video covered lots of important aspects of the Norwegian economy, including its oil industry, remarkable living standards, and high living costs. If you found our video engaging, then please leave a like, and do remember to subscribe. Till then, goodbye.